I've always believed that weddings bring people together. I don't mean the fairy tale stuff, just the practical side of it. People clear their schedules, get on planes, make time for you. That's what I thought would happen when Brian and I set the date. I'm a designer. Mostly interiors. I've made a decent name for myself in Denver. Enough clients, some magazine features, steady referrals. Brian's in real estate. We met at a property staging job, of all places. Cliché, right? But it worked. We moved in together after 8 months. Got engaged at the end of the second year. He proposed with his grandmother's ring. I said yes before he even got through the question. We decided on a small wedding. Backyard style, under the string lights. My brother grilling ribs. Brian's sister making cocktails. Low budget but heartfelt. We both agreed. No showy nonsense, just real people. Real love. The issue started when I sent the first invitation to my Aunt Victoria. She's my dad's older sister and she's always been distant. Rich, elegant, intimidating. She married some tech guy 20 years ago and they made millions during the dot-com boom. After he died, she sold everything and moved to a massive glass house in Santa Barbara. I hadn't seen her in person in over 6 years, but we spoke occasionally. And by spoke, I mean she commented on my Facebook posts with one-word replies like nice or interesting. Still, she's my only close relative from my dad's side. Mom died when I was 16. Dad passed away 2 years ago from liver cancer. So I felt this weird pressure to include her. It wasn't about her money. Honestly, I just thought she might want to feel like part of the family again. I mailed the invite. No RSVP. I waited a couple of weeks and sent a second one, just in case. That's when the email came. Subject: your wedding. No greeting, just this line. Backyard weddings are for children playing dress up, not serious adults starting their lives. That was it. I read it 3 times before calling Brian into the room. He laughed, kind of nervously, and said, "What the hell is wrong with her?" I wanted to reply, something biting, but I didn't. I let it sit. I tried to ignore it. Then 2 weeks later, she sent a gift box. Inside was a Tiffany vase and a handwritten note. "Since you insist on this rural fantasy, perhaps this will class it up a bit. Best of luck. No congratulations. No plans to attend. Just disdain." I told my brother Nate. He said, "Screw her. She never liked your dad anyway." But it was more than that. She didn't just ignore me. She made it clear she thought our wedding was beneath her. I wasn't angry yet, not really. More confused. This woman hadn't spoken to me properly in years. Why even bother sending anything at all? I decided to call her. It went straight to voicemail. I left a call message. "Hi Aunt Victoria, it's Alice. I got your note. I just wanted to say that you're welcome at the wedding if you change your mind. It's going to be small, but meaningful to us." She never called back. And then things started getting weird. First, the florist I'd booked, Marta, who I've worked with on a dozen projects, called me up crying. "I'm so sorry, Alice, I have to cancel the wedding order." I thought maybe it was a family emergency or something. But no. She said someone called her shop and claimed I was mentally unstable and prone to outbursts, and that she'd be liable if anything went wrong. They didn't give a name, but they cited things from my teenage years, like my brief stay at a behavioral center after my mom died. "I know it's bullshit," Marta said, sniffling, "but they threatened a bad Yelp campaign and anonymous reviews. I'm a small business. I can't take that risk." I hung up stunned. Brian was furious. Who the hell does something like that? Only one person came to mind. But it felt insane to say it out loud. Victoria? My aunt who hadn't spoken to me in years, suddenly deciding to sabotage my wedding? It sounded paranoid. And yet, more things started unraveling. The caterer canceled next. We're double booked. Sorry. Our minister emailed saying her schedule suddenly changed. My custom dress designer in Boulder ghosted me entirely. It was like something or someone was picking the whole thing apart. I confronted Victoria. I sent a direct email. No sugarcoating. If you don't want to come to my wedding, fine. But if you're actively trying to destroy it, I need to understand why. What did I ever do to you? She replied within the hour. Your father was a liar and a thief. That's what you did. That line broke something in me. I didn't even know what she meant. My dad was a civil engineer, worked for the city. The worst thing he ever did was get 2 speeding tickets in the same year. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. Brian took the laptop from me. We need to go see her. So we booked a flight to Santa Barbara. Victoria didn't know we were coming. When we pulled up to her house, a mansion with walls of windows and a view of the Pacific, I felt like I was in the wrong universe. She answered the door herself. Her hair was silver, tied in a chignon, and she wore a silk robe like she was expecting royalty. You flew all the way here just to whine? She asked. I stepped inside anyway. The house was cold. Not in temperature, just in feel. Empty walls. Sharp corners. No photos. No warmth. Brian stayed by the door. I followed her to the kitchen. Why are you doing this? I asked. She poured herself tea. You wouldn't understand. Try me. She took a sip. Your father stole from our family. He forged documents when our father died, took money that wasn't his. I spent years cleaning up the mess. My head spun. That's not possible. You were a child. You wouldn't know. He worked for the city. What money? What inheritance? She set the teacup down with a soft clink. You don't even know the half of it. And now you want me to sit on a lawn chair next to a smoker grill and pretend we're all one big happy family. I said nothing. Then she added, "You're just like him. Pretending to be humble while clawing for what isn't yours." I didn't cry. I just turned and left. Brian followed me. We drove back to the hotel in silence. Back in Denver, things were worse. Someone had reported me to the state board for unethical design practices. False complaints. Obvious lies. But still, I had to go through a formal review. The wedding was a month away, and it was falling apart. I had no florist, no caterer, no dress, and now my professional license was at risk. Brian suggested we postpone, but I didn't want to give her that satisfaction. Instead, I called Nate, and that's when he told me something I'll never forget. "I got a letter," he said, "from a lawyer. It says Dad left a trust, with money, and property, stuff we never knew about." I blinked. What? It was hidden. Like, really hidden. Offshore. The lawyer said it took years to track us down. Victoria tried to claim it, but she wasn't listed. Just you and me. My mind was racing. And the letter said one more thing, Nate added. Dad suspected she'd try to destroy it. That's why he kept it secret. My stomach dropped. All this time, Victoria hadn't been angry at my backyard wedding. She'd been angry that she lost. After that call with Nate, I couldn't sleep. My brain kept replaying every interaction I'd ever had with Aunt Victoria, every cold stare, every dismissive remark, every silent absence, all of it now cast under the light of something much darker. She wasn't just an elitist snob offended by my backyard wedding. She was a calculating, vindictive woman who tried to erase me from the map because she didn't get her way. She couldn't stand that Dad had outsmarted her, that the inheritance she thought was hers had been hidden in plain sight, locked up in legal protections she couldn't crack. So instead of accepting it, she came after me, my vendors, my wedding, my career. She tried to ruin everything I was building. I'd never considered myself the revenge type, but there's something about being attacked in silence, in the shadows, by someone too much of a coward to admit they hate you, that does something to you. I knew I couldn't fight her with money. She had more of it than God. But I could fight her with her image. Victoria moved in circles where perception was everything. She was a longtime member of the Silver Crest Society, a tight-knit group of ultra-wealthy women in Southern California. Their photos were in magazines. They hosted galas and fundraisers that appeared in Town Country and Veranda. Their annual spring gala at the Avalon Museum drew celebrities and political figures. It was their Super Bowl. I'd heard of them in passing, but I never really paid attention until I started digging. Silver Crest was sacred to her. Her entire life revolved around it. Their parties. Their committees. Their social rankings. And just like any closed system built on image and etiquette, one scandal could shatter everything. That's where I'd strike. I didn't know how yet, but I knew what her weakness was. I started by making a list. First, I needed to know the internal workings of Silvercrest, who the key players were, who had influence, who might talk. Second, I needed access, some kind of foothold. An inside person. Or a very convincing disguise. Third, I needed something scandalous. Not petty. Not fake. Something that couldn't be dismissed as gossip. I started with research. Obsessive research. Every article, photo archive, event write-up, anything with the Silvercrest name on it, I read. Victoria appeared in dozens of photos. Always centered. Always styled to perfection. Her friends included women like Camille Weatherford, an heiress to a vineyard empire, and Juliana Park, a former political consultant turned philanthropist. But there was one name that popped up again and again. Lorraine Hensley. She wasn't the richest of them. But she was the founding member. The one with the old money name and the iron grip on their traditions. Victoria practically bowed in her presence in the few videos I found online. If Lorraine didn't like someone, they were finished. I started calling in favors. One of my old clients, Michelle, was a marketing exec who had worked on a branding project for a Silvercrest-adjacent luxury brand. I met her for lunch and casually brought it up. "You know anyone in the Silvercrest Society?" She raised an eyebrow. "That's a random question." I smiled. "Just curious. I might be doing a design consult in Santa Barbara. Thought it might help to know someone." She paused. "I met one of them once, Jacqueline something. She runs a gallery in Montecito." Jackpot. A week later, I drove to Montecito with a forged design portfolio, using a pseudonym I'd created, Elise Grant. The kind of name that looked at home on an engraved note card. The gallery was called Orem. Modern, minimalist, glass walls and concrete floors. Jacqueline Vale was tall, mid-50s, with a narrow face and an impeccably draped gray cashmere wrap. I told her I was looking to transition into curating gallery spaces for upscale clients, and asked if she ever needed help with layouts or installations. She was polite, guarded, but curious. I complimented a brass sculpture near the entrance, mentioned an obscure Italian sculptor she actually knew, and by the end of the meeting, she'd agreed to let me shadow her for 2 days during an upcoming installation. That was my entry point. Over those 2 days, I watched her closely, learned how she talked, what she wore, what names she dropped. I matched her cadence, nodded at the right times, and asked smart questions about lighting and material balance. I never let her know how much I was studying her. On the second day, she took a call in the office and left her phone on speaker. It was Juliana Park, Victoria's friend. "I just got back from Provence," Juliana was saying. And of course she was there. Talking about buying a chateau. With what money, I wonder? Jacqueline laughed. Oh, Victoria's full of secrets. But Lorraine still worships her. Juliana, not for long. I heard about the transfer. Trust me, the second Lorraine gets wind of it, it's over. Jacqueline, what transfer? Then she looked at me and turned the speaker off. That word, transfer, echoed in my mind all the way back to the hotel. What transfer? I spent the next 3 days doing deep digging into Victoria's assets. It wasn't easy, she'd wrapped most of it in shell companies, but I eventually found a real estate holding in Belize transferred to a new owner 2 weeks prior. The timing lined up perfectly with when she found out she'd lost Dad's trust to Nate and me. It looked like she was hiding assets. Maybe to shield them from tax scrutiny, maybe to hide from the Silvercrest women. Either way, if I could prove it, it'd be explosive. But it wasn't enough yet. I needed someone on the inside. Someone who didn't like Victoria. Someone willing to talk. That's where Daria came in. Daria Wright was a former Silvercrest member, pushed out after a bitter divorce that embarrassed the society, according to press clippings. She was once a rising star, and Victoria had apparently led the charge to exile her. I found her living quietly in a renovated farmhouse outside Ojai, working as a private sommelier and occasional wine columnist. I drove up unannounced. Told her my real name. I'm Alice. Victoria Langford's niece. Her eyes narrowed. You have guts coming here. I know. But I'm not here to defend her. I'm here to destroy her. I showed her the Belize documents. I told her about the sabotage. About the trust. Everything. She listened without a word. Then finally she said, you know what they care about more than money? I leaned forward. What? Control. The illusion of it. If you can show Victoria's lost hers, she's finished. Over the next 2 weeks, Daria helped me gather a list of potential cracks in Victoria's armor. Sketchy art donations. A forged valuation on a donated necklace. A Silvercrest-funded scholarship that mysteriously vanished after going through one of Victoria's foundations. We collected paper trails. Quietly. Carefully. Then Daria sent an anonymous tip to Lorraine Hensley, flagging a potential reputational risk involving Victoria and a foreign asset transfer. Within 48 hours, Lorraine's assistant emailed Victoria, requesting an urgent in-person meeting. A week later, the Silvercrest Internal Committee voted to suspend Victoria Langford pending an internal review of ethical violations related to undeclared financial activity. It was all done in cold, polite language. But it was brutal. The press didn't pick up on the details, just the suspension. But within days, Victoria was removed from all planning boards. Her name was wiped from upcoming event rosters. Camille Weatherford unfollowed her on social media. Juliana Park deleted every photo they were in together. She was ghosted by her world. The final blow came at the Avalon Gala. Daria and I attended together, under aliases, just to watch it unfold. When Victoria showed up at the entrance in a sapphire silk gown, the women at check-in pulled her aside. You're not on the list. I'm Victoria Langford, she said, forcing a laugh. I'm sorry, but the guest list is final. The look on her face, disbelief, rage, humiliation, was etched into my memory forever. She left without a word. As we watched her car pull away, Daria leaned in and whispered, "Welcome to the shadows, Victoria." And I smiled. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. After watching Victoria get turned away from the Avalon Gala like some forgotten B-list celebrity, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Power. Not the kind you're born into or buy with old money. Real power. The kind you build with information. But I also knew one thing. It wasn't over. Not even close. Victoria wasn't the type to crawl into a hole and disappear. She'd wait, regroup, strike back. Her ego wouldn't let her go down quietly. If I wanted to finish what I started, I had to cut deeper. Leave no room for her to claw her way back into Silvercrest. Her reputation had cracks. Now I had to smash it. The Silvercrest Society didn't just care about appearances. They had a written code of ethics, 20 pages long. No conduct unbecoming, no scandal, no negative media attention. Membership cost $100,000 a year, and the price of admission wasn't just money, it was silence, order, and pristine public image. One good scandal? That could get you permanently banned. So I started building a story. And like all good stories, it needed characters. First came Emily Rhodes, an ambitious investigative journalist, working on a piece about misuse of nonprofit funds in elite women's networks. She didn't exist, of course. But she had a website, a Substack, a LinkedIn profile, and a burner phone. Her Twitter had exactly 312 followers, just enough to look new but credible. I made sure she posted a few articles with carefully AI-written fluff about art fraud and boutique charities. Nothing too sharp, just enough bait. Then came Mark Jensen, a bitter semi-retired accountant who worked for Victoria's personal foundation from 2015 to 2019. He'd left due to creative differences and was ready to tell his side of the story. Mark had a phone number too. An old Gmail. A fake resume. And a voice mine, heavily distorted through software, low and slightly gruff. I practiced his tone over and over until I could deliver lines like, "She ran everything like a monarchy." There were checks written to vendors that didn't exist. With Emily and Mark alive and online, I started the next phase, collecting dirt. I already had the real estate transfer in Belize, which smelled like asset shielding, but I needed more. I began with Victoria's pet charity, the Langford Foundation for Women in Innovation. On the surface, it looked legitimate. Nice branding. Crisp mission statement. But their yearly reports, buried deep in PDF downloads, told a different story. In 2021, they'd claimed to donate $200,000 to a coding camp in Arizona. The camp didn't exist. The address listed was a UPS drop box in Scottsdale. I cross-checked other recipients. A nutrition nonprofit in Oregon, supposedly given $85,000. Their site had been offline since 2018. The phone number led to a disconnected line. Their EIN was tied to a dog rescue, not a nutrition program. So where had the money gone? I used Emily's fake email to request interviews. She reached out to Victoria's known associates with a carefully worded pitch. I'm working on a profile about innovation-focused charities in California. You were listed as a key donor on the Langford Foundation's 2022 990s PF. I'd love to ask you a few questions about your partnership. Several replied with confusion. I've never donated to the Langford Foundation. That must be a mistake. I haven't worked with Victoria since 2016. Is this about the incident with the interns? Wait, interns? One of the replies mentioned that during a 2022 event in Palm Springs, Victoria berated 2 college interns from Stanford so badly that one quit mid-program. Another had a panic attack backstage. I tracked down the intern's name through an archived scholarship announcement. Maya Pritchard, now a grad student at Berkeley. I reached out as Emily again, saying I was investigating unethical treatment of unpaid interns in nonprofit settings. She replied in 5 minutes. I've been waiting 2 years for someone to ask. Maya gave me everything. Transcripts of messages, a screenshot of a text Victoria sent calling her a know-nothing charity puppet, and audio from the gala's backstage area where Victoria screamed at her over the placement of a donor's name on a banner. You think the Weatherfords are here to feel equal to the interns? Victoria hissed in the recording. They wrote a check with 4 zeros. You fetch water and shut up. I had to pause it halfway through. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. But it got worse. Maya told me that after the panic attack, she wasn't allowed to leave. Victoria allegedly had her assistant, Lorna Griggs, threaten to revoke her scholarship if she didn't complete her service term. I looked up Lorna. She'd quietly left the foundation 3 months after that gala. I called her as Mark Jensen. I disguised my voice and told her I was putting together a report for a lawyer regarding Victoria's treatment of foundation staff. There was a long pause. Then she said, "Is this about the drink spill?" I blinked. Sorry. She used foundation funds for her birthday party in Carmel. Bought 72 bottles of Dom, charged it as a donor event. I flagged it. She said if I ever opened my mouth, she'd ruin me. I kept digging. I started looking into property taxes on her Santa Barbara home. Somehow, she was getting reduced rates through a historical preservation loophole. Except the property had been gutted and rebuilt in 2016. I found drone photos and renovation permits. She was fraudulently claiming a tax exemption. Every lie opened a door to another. Then came the most explosive find of all. Victoria had recently funded a startup incubator in Malibu called Ocean Bridge Ventures, marketed as a femtech accelerator. Their site was flashy. Their advisors included high-profile names. But one of the listed startups, Bloomwell Diagnostics, was a shell. No patents, no actual technology. I reached out to a venture consultant I once worked with on a hotel project and casually asked about Bloomwell. He laughed. That's not a startup. That's a cash funnel. Word is, they're just laundering rich donor money to write off losses. I cross-checked the names. One of the board members of Bloomwell had the same last name as Victoria's former interior decorator. Another was her plastic surgeon's niece. She was laundering donor money through fake tech. Now I had enough. Using a secure server, I created a massive anonymous dossier. Screenshots, PDFs, audio clips, 990 tax forms, a detailed timeline, and quotes from both Emily Rhodes and Mark Jensen. I named the file Langford_deception_master.zip. I sent it to 4 people. Lorraine Hensley, Juliana Park, the Silver Crest Oversight Council, and an anonymous tip submission to the Monterey Review, a high society gossip and investigative hybrid with just enough teeth to run a scandal if they smelled blood. Then I waited. Within 2 days, Juliana unfollowed everyone associated with Victoria. On the 3rd day, Silvercrest issued a private bulletin to its members. A formal ethics review is underway regarding Mrs. Langford. We urge discretion until the matter is resolved. On day 4, Lorraine's assistant contacted Emily Rhodes via encrypted email. Do you have more materials you'd be willing to share confidentially with our legal counsel? I responded with a simple yes. By day 5, I received an alert from one of my bot accounts. The Monterey Review had posted a teaser headline on their homepage. High Society, Hidden Scandals, Southern California Foundation under fire. And right below that, a subheading. Anonymous whistleblowers reveal potential fraud, abuse, and financial misreporting tied to elite donor circles. They hadn't named Victoria yet, but everyone who mattered would know. By the end of that week, I received an anonymous tip myself. Someone inside Silvercrest leaked a document to Emily. Victoria's membership was officially under indefinite suspension, pending resolution of financial and reputational breaches. She would be barred from attending events, voting on society matters, or using their name in any official materials. That wasn't all. The Langford Foundation had quietly taken down its entire website. Emails to the foundation's listed address bounced back. And someone, I suspect Lorraine, filed a request with the state's Department of Justice to audit their grants over the past 5 years. I'd torn through every layer of her empire with 2 ghosts and a borrowed voice. But I never spoke a single word to her through any of it. Not a call. Not a text. Nothing. Because I wanted her to sit in her mansion, watching her world burn, not knowing who lit the match. The first real sign that the fire had jumped the fence came on a Wednesday morning. I was having coffee in my kitchen, the wedding countdown now less than 2 weeks away, when I got a Google alert I didn't even remember setting. Langford Foundation under investigation for financial irregularities, it read. Published in the Monterey Review. The full article was 5 paragraphs long. Short, but devastating. It didn't name names, but it cited a high-profile nonprofit affiliated with a member of the Silvercrest Society, currently being audited by California's Department of Justice following an internal complaint filed by a former employee and third-party investigator. I stared at the screen, pulse pounding. It had started. What happened next moved faster than I expected. Within 48 hours, 2 other small outlets had picked up the piece. The Coastal Sentinel and California Capitol Watchdog, both known for amplifying stories involving misuse of charitable funds. This time, they did name Victoria. The Sentinel even used a picture from one of her charity galas, with a quote from someone close to the organization, Daria, obviously stating that donors were led to believe funds were going to active educational programs when, in fact, those programs were never verified. I didn't need to do anything else. I just sat back and watched the media machine pick up the scent and run wild. Victoria didn't release a statement. But her assistant at the time, a woman named Angela Keene, did. In an exclusive interview with the Review, Angela stated that Victoria often had her fudge expense reports, move money between accounts without proper documentation, and use donor funds to pay for personal travel and luxury hospitality services. She treated the Langford Foundation like her personal piggy bank, Angela told the reporter. I once had to charge a $9,800 spa weekend to our community outreach budget. That line went viral. It appeared in memes, tweets, Instagram stories with captions like, me treating my bank account like Victoria Langford's foundation. A day later, Silvercrest issued their first official public statement. The society takes all claims of financial misconduct seriously. An internal review has been initiated in collaboration with our legal advisors. Until its conclusion, Mrs. Victoria Langford's participation in any official or public-facing Silvercrest activities is suspended. But behind the scenes, things were getting uglier. I got a message from Jacqueline Vale, yes, that Jacqueline, through a burner account. I don't know who you are or what you did, but it's working, she wrote. Camille dropped her from her spa event. Lorraine stopped returning her calls. The vote is coming. The vote. Silvercrest had an internal disciplinary procedure for catastrophic conduct. It required a 3-stage process: initial inquiry, full council vote, and public resolution. Victoria had always been protected by her influence. Now, that shield was gone. Even her allies were turning silent. A few days later, a woman named Gretchen Nadir, a low-level society member and freelance photojournalist, published a Medium post titled, What I Saw at the Langford Foundation Gala. It was damning. She described Victoria berating a florist, calling her trailer trash with shears. She described a donor envelope going missing and magically reappearing in Victoria's purse the next day. She described overhearing Victoria mocking a guest child who had autism, calling them one of those sensory disasters. It was so vile I read the post twice to believe it. The next morning, Gretchen's article was quoted in the San Francisco Weekly. Not a huge paper, but enough to spread it statewide. At this point, I thought Victoria would retreat. But she did the opposite. She tried to fight back. Her first move was hiring a crisis PR firm, Kendall Bloom Strategies, known for managing celebrity divorces and tax fraud allegations. They released a laughably tone-deaf statement on her behalf. Mrs. Langford has always held herself to the highest standards of philanthropic leadership. These recent stories are clearly part of a targeted smear campaign launched by individuals with malicious intent. A bad call. Silvercrest members took the malicious individual's line as a personal insult, publicly denying everything when half the membership had witnessed her behavior firsthand. Not smart. Juliana Park posted a now-deleted Instagram story showing a champagne bottle with the caption, To seeing masks fall. Cheers. Then came the leak. Somehow, and I don't know if it was Daria or another disgruntled staffer, an internal Silvercrest email chain got published by Civic Herald. It showed board members debating Victoria's fate. One thread from Lorraine read, We've bent rules for Victoria for too long. At what point does tradition become complicity? That quote blew the doors open. Victoria was officially toxic. But the final blow came from a man named Giles Farrell. Giles was an independent auditor hired by Silvercrest during their investigation. He used to work for the IRS, and his report, once leaked, was brutal. He'd traced at least $1.6 million in misallocated foundation funds. Some of it went to art purchases later found in Victoria's private residence, some to offshore consultation fees that led to closed Belizean accounts, and some to personal wardrobe expenses. Receipts showed payments to Maison Aube, a Parisian couture house. One invoice literally said, custom hand-beaded evening gown for Avalon Gala, designed to symbolize purity and renewal. You couldn't script irony better if you tried. The press devoured it. By the end of the week, 5 major publications ran stories with titles like, The Fall of a Philanthropic Queen, How Victoria Langford Exploited the Trust of the Elite, Fraud, Fashion, and the Silvercrest Scandal. And then, finally, came the moment I'd been waiting for. Silvercrest sent out a formal notice to all members. Effective immediately, Mrs. Victoria Langford has been expelled from the Silvercrest Society for violations of Article 4, Financial Ethics, and Article 7, Conduct Detrimental to Society Reputation. All privileges revoked. Her name is hereby removed from all current and archived records. Just like that, she was erased. Not just suspended, expelled. The ultimate punishment in her world. Her public image disintegrated within days. Her speaking engagements disappeared. Her foundation was frozen pending further investigation. Even Ocean Bridge Ventures quietly scrubbed her name from their board page. But the strangest part? She didn't make a sound. No lawsuit. No press conference. No interviews. She vanished. A week later, Jacqueline told me in a call, no voice changers this time, that Victoria had left California. She went to Switzerland. Some chalet she used to talk about. Nobody's heard from her since. I didn't celebrate. Not out loud. But I did sit alone that night, glass of wine in hand, and read through the final expulsion letter one more time. She thought she could ruin my life from the shadows. And I had dragged her into the light. When it was finally over, when the articles stopped, when Victoria's name disappeared from every website, when Silvercrest erased her from their records like she'd never existed, I thought I'd feel something more than empty. Maybe satisfaction. Maybe relief. Something. But mostly I felt disconnected. Like the world had gone quiet in all the wrong ways. The wedding never happened. Brian left me 6 days before the ceremony. He didn't yell. Didn't cry. Just came home from a morning run, sweat still on his forehead, and told me he couldn't do it. I don't even know who you are anymore, he said. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was too late to pretend we hadn't seen this coming. You knew what I was doing, I said. You were part of it. I didn't know you'd keep going after we won. His voice cracked on the word won, like it tasted bitter even saying it. We got her out, he said. You buried her. But now you can't stop. It's like you needed this to matter more than everything else. I didn't respond. I just stared at him, and in that moment, I realized I wasn't going to fight. Not because I agreed, but because I didn't have the energy to try and convince someone to stay who had already left months ago in spirit. He packed a bag that night. Slept on the couch. Left in the morning. I never saw him again. He sent a text a few days later saying he was going to stay with a friend in San Diego. A month after that, I saw a tagged photo of him at a rooftop bar with a woman named Kendall. She looked like someone who did yoga before coffee and smiled with her whole face. I didn't click the profile. After Brian, the rest of my world started shrinking too. My brother Nate and I had always been close. He was my anchor through Dad's illness and the only one who truly knew what our childhood looked like behind the polite smiles. But even he started pulling away. At first, I didn't notice. He still replied to texts. Still asked about the house remodel. But there was something clipped in the way he spoke. Like he was checking boxes. Then one day I called him to tell him about a letter I'd received from the state board, the one confirming that all professional complaints against me had been dismissed. He answered on the third ring. Hey. I wanted to tell you, it's over. Officially. They dropped everything. Silence. You don't sound excited, I said. He sighed. I guess I'm just tired, Alice. This whole thing, it's been a lot. You mean Victoria was a lot? I just defended myself. No, he said. You didn't just defend yourself. You scorched the earth. That one stung more than Brian walking out. What does that even mean? I asked. I exposed the truth. You read the reports. I did. But you didn't stop when it was over. You kept digging. Creating people. Setting traps. It's like you became her. I hung up before he could finish. A week later, I heard from our cousin Serena, one of the few relatives who had stayed neutral through the whole thing. She invited me to a family dinner. But when I showed up, Nate wasn't there. Neither were his kids. Serena said something about him needing space. I left early. The house felt cavernous when I got back. Quiet in a way that made the walls hum. I kept my phone on silent after that. Clients slowly started fading too. Not officially. No one said anything outright. But jobs that had been promised got delayed. Meetings rescheduled indefinitely. My name stopped appearing on group emails. People in design hate noise. And I had become noise. One day I ran into Marta, the florist who'd canceled on me before the wedding. She was shopping for vases at a vintage market downtown. I said hi. She smiled politely but didn't stop walking. She pretended to get a phone call 2 seconds later. It was like I'd become radioactive. A few weeks passed, then a few more. The wedding decorations were still in boxes in the garage. I didn't have the heart to throw them out, but I couldn't look at them either. That's when I started walking at night. Not for fitness or therapy. I just needed something to do that wasn't staring at my own walls. I'd loop around the park. Watch people. Couples holding hands. Dogs chasing each other under street lamps. Parents pushing strollers. I'd watch their lives like a window I wasn't allowed to open. One night, I walked past a bench and saw a newspaper someone had left behind. The front page was about a Senate race. But halfway down the fold was a photo of Camille Weatherford at some gala, now sitting next to a new rising member of Silvercrest, a woman named Paige Fellon, some hedge fund heiress from Connecticut. Victoria's name didn't appear once. She had officially been replaced. I kept the paper. I don't know why. Eventually I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Lena Shine, recommended by one of my old college professors. She had a sharp voice and wore her gray hair in a tight, severe bun, but she had this way of cutting through the noise without ever sounding cruel. After 3 sessions, she asked me, "Do you feel like you lost something?" I didn't even pretend not to know what she meant. "Yes," I said. "But I also feel like I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice," she said. "Even if it's choosing what not to destroy." That sat in my chest like a stone. Over the next month, I tried to make amends where I could. I texted Nate. No reply. I emailed Brian. Just to say I was sorry for the way everything unraveled. No reply. I even reached out to Lorna Griggs, Victoria's ex-assistant, to thank her for speaking up. She did reply. "Just promise me you won't become her." That line stuck with me. I'd gotten what I wanted. My aunt was disgraced. Exiled. Her name was now synonymous with fraud, not philanthropy. But in the process, I'd lost everyone I cared about. I'd hollowed out my life chasing something that didn't give me peace. Only silence. The worst part? Sometimes, I'd wake up thinking I had one more secret to uncover. One more thread to pull. One more document to leak. And then I'd realize it was over. The war was won. But no one was left on my side of the field. I still had my career. Technically, my license was intact, and a few clients still called. But I wasn't the woman who used to sketch design ideas in bed next to Brian while he scrolled Zillow listings. I wasn't the woman who picked flower arrangements with Nate's daughter in my lap. I'd become a weapon. And weapons don't get invited to weddings. They don't get trusted with babies. They don't get loved. Sometimes I wonder if Victoria ever sits in that chalet in Switzerland and feels the same cold silence that I do. Somehow I doubt it. People like her don't feel loss. They just replace it. But me? I live with it. Every day.